The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Get go, Cowboys!
This is Mick Shots, streaming live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app. Now, here are Bill Jones, Everson Walls, and Mickey Spagnola.
And it is a Monday here inside the SWBC podcast studio. And oh my, things are starting to shake in the National Football League. This is Mick Shots, brought to you by Miller Lite without Everson Walls. He's on assignment today.
So I figured out where he's at.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Where?
The HBCU draft combine was
okay.
this week, and they played the game on Saturday in New Orleans.
It's funny because Everson just tells us last Monday that I'm not going to be here next Monday.
Right.
And doesn't tell us why. We didn't pry.
Because I always say he's going to New Mexico,
business,
right?
Whatever. Yeah.
Secret government mission.
So you made it your mission the last week. Okay, let's figure out where Everson's
So I'm assuming, because they have practices, and I'm assuming they bring guys like him there to help out.
That's right. Not just to help out, not just to run the practice, but to tutor some of these young draft prospects. And speaking of combines, the NFL Scouting Combine is underway in Indianapolis. And Mickey,
it's out.
Here it is.
Oh, it's a fancy green notebook.
It's the big green notebook. There it is.
He didn't buy that at Walmart.
This is where we find five-star prospects in the NFL draft. And we've been doing it for 20 years now. It goes back to the old Cowboys channel when Mickey and I discovered DeMarcus Ware and Marcus Spears. The Cowboys had 2 first-round draft picks in 2005. And for you loyal, long-time listeners to originally Talking Cowboys, this is the original Talking Cowboys, by the way.
That's right.
And now Mick Shots. You know that in 2005, we not only talked to the high school coach of Marcus Spears at Southern Lab in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but also the high school coach and I think the college coach of DeMarcus Ware. This is where we told you the Cowboys are picking DeMarcus Ware and Marcus Spears in the first round of that 2005.
And we got them in the right order.
That's right,
too,
unlike Bill Parcells.
They got us. They must have been listening to us, right?
That's where it basically all started for me.
20 years ago.
Diving deep into the draft.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. You know, and what it coincided with was, I've thought about this, why has the draft become such, as Parcells would put it, such a cottage industry? And it really, I think, started with the advent of YouTube, and for fans to be able to easily access video of all these players in college.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and where you could spend hours just looking at, and it's gotten obviously over the course of 20 years, much more advanced than what it was in 2005. But I really think that is where the NFL draft, the interest in the NFL draft just skyrocketed, is because of the easy access to videos of these players.
And then I think the NFL made a really good decision to move the draft around.
Yeah,
different places. It was here 20.
Whatever year it was. Yep.
It would have been Van Der Esch's
2019
rookie year. Yeah,
I think
2018.
2018, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
But moving it around like that to different spots, you engage more fans from different places. Yeah, I think.
But that's once it got to draft day. But
yes,
it's when the whole combine and all that stuff, and obviously, and it was about that time that the NFL Network got started. In fact, I think the Cowboys channel it was actually the precursor to the NFL Network.
Well, you know what happened, right?
They couldn't, and the Cowboys channel was on Comcast,
right?
Cable, and
24 hours.
24 hours. In fact, we used to do. During the Cowboys season, we would do an hour-long Sports Center type Cowboys show Monday through Friday from our little closet at Valley Ranch. And it was after that the NFL Network was born, and the teams had to do away with, the one team that had its own cable TV channel, the Cowboys, had to do away with the Cowboys channel.
I remember that year somewhere we were on the road, and so they had told us, or I guess it would have been the next year, that the NFL basically went to the owners and said, look, there's no sense having a TV channel competing with the other channel you already own, so we would appreciate if you didn't have
especially as widely viewed as
Yes.
the Cowboys channel was.
So we were in the middle of the season when that happened. So it happened the next year, and Jerry saw me. I don't know where we were. We were on a road game, and he said, he goes, when we get this stadium thing settled, we're going to get this channel back. I don't care what they said. Never came back.
Well, no,
on TV.
You know what? It came back as what you're doing right now.
Right,
it
right.
came back as podcast,
Yeah.
and basically, you've got 24-hour access to all the Cowboys information that you want through the podcast.
And now with all our cameras in here,
That's right.
We're back on TV.
That's right. All right. So much to get to
Yes.
since we last convened
course.
in fact, last Tuesday, which was the last time we got together after the President's Day holiday. The Cowboys coaches were all assembled for the media to talk to, and so we got to get your take on what came out of that. And then we had the breaking news on Thursday where Zack Martin made it official, informing the Cowboys that he is calling it a Hall of Fame career. And I think he worded it that way when he went into Jerry. I've decided to call it a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, right. I think I've done enough, right? No sense trying anymore.
And then now we fast forward to this week, and we got the combine going on this week, and we're 2 weeks from today. It's basically the start of NFL free agency.
So I've got two of my tablets here full of stuff for everything that's going on. So I guess we should start with the coaches, the impressions that they made. As a group, and I know you haven't coached a game yet, right? But a very personable group of coaches. Very easy interviews. And when I started listening to everybody and how they put this staff together, I got a feeling that there was, and I said this to Schottenheimer. Now, he didn't do an interview, but I caught him off to the side. And I said, there seems to be on this staff a heavy emphasis on the offensive line and being able to run the football. And he goes, I think that's fair. And if you look at the number of guys that are or have been coordinators, offensive coordinators, not just him, but not necessarily in the NFL, but between Clayton Adams, Connor Riley, they added Ken Dorsey, who had been an offensive coordinator in Cleveland and Buffalo. There's a lot of guys that have had their hands into coordinating the offense to help him out. But if you look at Clayton Adams, so they named him the offensive coordinator, but he's an offensive line coach, right? And when he was asked, will you, have a hand in helping out on the offensive line, and I don't think his word was absolutely, but yeah, of course. And then Connor Riley had coached in college 22 years. He had been a coordinator, but he's an offensive line coach. They've got an assistant offensive line coach also on the staff with Ramon Chinyoung. And there just seems to be, and then a running backs coach. It just seems like running the football is going to be a priority. And if you look at Schottenheimer's history as a coordinator, he's had good running teams with the Jets and Seattle for sure. So as I was talking to the running back coach, I said
Derek Foster,
that it looks like a priority. He goes, it is, and it will be. And I said, now all you need is running backs. and he laughed. But yeah, it's. I don't know if that made an impression on you, but it made an impression on me.
No doubt, no doubt. And in fact, as we've talked about, Schottenheimer's team with the Jets. I mean, they made it to the AFC Championship game with the number one ranked rushing offense in the league back when he was the offensive coordinator there, and Mark Sanchez was a rookie quarterback coming into the league.
Right.
And then when he had Russell Wilson with Seattle, they were also the number one rushing offense in the league with the Seahawks. It is interesting as you look at the, which is a very small stable of running backs on this roster right now, and literally in Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Lipke, if you want to count him as a running back to go along with him being a fullback and an H-back type, Malik Davis, and that's it.
Yeah, and so
it's an open season, open market for running backs, starting in free agency 2 weeks from today, or maybe even prior to 2 weeks from today, because they've got one that they can go ahead and negotiate with right now, Enrico Dowdle, and we'll see what happens.
And it sounded like from what Stephen Jones said at the Combine on Sunday, where the competition committee was already meeting, that Rico sounds like one of their priorities to re-sign, along with Jordan Lewis and Oso Digizou, who may be the hardest one to try to re-sign. But maybe the top priority, since they don't have many or hardly any defensive tackles under contract, Mozzie Smith, and maybe there was somebody on the practice squad.
Justin Rogers.
Okay.
Was back. Okay.
Right.
Justin Rogers, a seventh-round pick last year, and then he came back at the end of the season. And Denzel Daxon is the other one,
right,
who is on the roster.
So, and Osa had a really good season, and I think that, I don't know that they do a franchise tag on him. It's $23 million, but they can do a transition tag. So at least you reserve the right of first refusal if somebody else.
It's rarely used. Teams don't normally use transition tags, but sometimes it can be used effectively. The issue that the Cowboys and the transition tag, it's a little less money than what a franchise tag would be.
But you don't get any compensation if you lose the guy.
And you can match whatever offer that player might get on the open market. The problem for the Cowboys is, from a salary cap standpoint, if you're going to have Micah Parsons playing on his fifth-year option at around $24 million a year, and obviously you know all the other salaries that are taking up from the high-dollared players on the team, can you afford even a plus $20 million a year transition tag on a defensive tackle?
And that's why you try to do a long-term deal where the guy gets his money up front, but you can spread it out and it won't cost as much every year.
The interesting thing, as far as we just talk running backs and we talk defensive linemen, defensive tackles, and if you listen to the so-called experts on this draft, the deepest positions in this draft might be running backs and defensive linemen.
Right. And so, you can't get both in the first round, but you got to figure out, if I get this here, there are enough guys at that other position in the second and third round to help me out. So, yeah, that's stuff that we'll talk about going forward and decisions the Cowboys made. But and the one person, I can't believe I forgot this. I think we talked about it last week. The secondary coach, David Overstreet.
Yep.
I forgot that he had played at
Missouri, yeah.
He was a 2-time All Big 12
And that's his
safety.
connection with Eberflus.
Right.
Because Eberflus was the defensive coordinator at Missouri when Overstreet played for him.
And he had him with the Bears.
Yeah, he's with the Bears.
Also, maybe with the Colts too. But I think when he was playing with Missouri, I didn't realize it was David Overstreet's son.
Yeah.
The running back from Oklahoma,
Right.
Who ended up he was from East Texas.
Big Sandy.
Big Sandy, Lovie Smith's hometown.
That's right.
And ended up first round
David
draft
Overstreet would have been high school teammates with Lovie Smith, I'm pretty sure, back in the mid-'70s, because he played at Oklahoma in the late 70s.
He was part of the Wishbone.
Maybe a year or two younger than Lovie, but they would have crossed paths in Big Sandy for sure.
And in the same backfield at Oklahoma with Billy Sims.
And Kenny King and Thomas Lott.
And Thomas Lott, right? Which should have come up on, it was Saturday. The Ticket did their ticket stock. They had Switzer as a guest.
Oh, did they really?
Which is another segment, by the way.
I need to go find that and listen to it.
He was unfiltered as always. Right?
In person?
They had him. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, he was there. They must have talked to him for an hour, it seemed like. And he had stories going with different antennas off of it that he never got back to the final part of the story. He was amazing. But yeah, I talked to Overstreet, and I forgot to point out that, it's like, we got some Missouri connections here. But anyway.
And I believe he went to Samuel High School.
Yes, he did. So he grew up in Pleasant Grove, he said. And he has a yearly camp here for some of the underprivileged type players, kids. And it's, I think he said June 21st.
Okay.
And he's got to find a spot because wherever he was having, I think he was having it at the stadium, maybe at Samuel High School, and it's under construction. So he said, I got to find a new place. And we were sitting there talking. I go, there's 2 fields right behind you, by the way.
and there's transportation available.
Yes.
That'd be fun. That'd be a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, on the defensive staff, Aaron Whitecotton is another guy that I'm interested in who was with the Jets, defensive line coach. And he's got a history. Of course, he was with Robert Saleh with the Jets. He was also with Saleh with San Francisco. And so we won't get into names per se, but when you're looking at potential free agent types, with a lot, whether it's Whitecotton or any other, or the Chicago guys that become available, guys that these coaches have a history with who will come at an economical price range. I expect the Cowboys to be, well, they can't be less active or as inactive as they were last year in free agency, but they got to do something in free agency this year. But it's going to be those low-tiered veterans. And there's going to be a whole bunch across the league, these veteran free agents that are signing for less than $2 million a year.
Right. And they did a decent job. No one gives them credit. Eric Kendricks was a hell of a free agent signing, right? And for basically what you just said, I think it was like maybe $3.5 million.
Yeah, $3 million.
Something like that. And they tried to get the nose tackle that ended up going to Seattle.
Jonathan Hankins.
And everybody said, how could they let him get away? They offered him a contract. I was told he wanted to go to Seattle because the defensive line coach ended up getting hired there as the defensive coordinator. And he felt like it goes to what you just said. Sometimes these guys' decision is to go with a coach they're familiar with and have some assurance that they're going to get a chance to play.
And real quickly, I was just looking up Jonathan Hankins last year with Seattle. 17 games, 8 starts, and he had a decent. I mean, it was the same type season he's been having.
Right.
He had 30 tackles, and he was a big run stuffer in the middle of their defense at 32 years old. And as it turns out, the Cowboys had to, they wait till training camp to make moves to try to enhance their defensive linemen. And that's
right.
one of the criticisms that Mike McCarthy had late in the season is if we're going to bring in guys, you'd like to have them here throughout the offseason program.
Right. And so yeah, we'll see how that turns out. But with a defensive stat, Matt Eberflus was able to bring in guys he knew for that staff. So everybody was really high after talking to him. And I said, yeah, this is great until you lose a game. You get smacked in the mouth, and it's like, okay, how's everybody doing?
And among the guys that he brought in from Chicago, Andre Curtis, the pass game coordinator, a secondary coach, Dave Borgonzi, linebackers coach, and you mentioned David Overstreet as well, right. Secondary coach.
So, and Nick Sorensen, the special teams coach, he's quite a talker, and there's another guy. He was a defensive coordinator
last year with San Francisco,
right? And so he's been a special teams player. They brought back Carlos Polk, who had been here as a special teams assistant a couple of years ago. So I think they've done a pretty good job putting this staff together, and there's a lot of it is who knew who, right? And the thing with Clayton Adams, the connection that Schottenheimer had with Clayton Adams, he was at Colorado when Mike McIntyre, the Cowboys' former defensive secondary coach, maybe he was.
Right.
He was the head coach at Colorado. Schottenheimer knew McIntyre, and so he kept hearing from McIntyre that this Clayton Adams is a pretty good guy.
Okay, now I'm sitting there trying to think, okay, where would Schottenheimer and McIntyre have crossed paths? And I'm going to have to go look through both backgrounds on them and figure out where but it could be they never worked together. There is a possibility that guys connect with each other
right.
outside of being on the same staff together.
And remember, McIntyre coached here.
You know what? Schottenheimer lives in Nashville. McIntyre's father was the head coach at Vanderbilt. He grew up in Nashville.
When Bill was there as an assistant
that's right.
coach.
So I bet it's a Nashville connection on McIntyre. I love Mike McIntyre. It's when he was here, and then he went on to Duke and then San Jose State, and that's where Clayton Adams was first on his staff at San Jose State, and then followed him to Colorado.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, there was a lot of connection. So it wasn't like they were just putting their hand in the hat and drawing a name out, right? There was always some sort of connection or somebody vouching for these guys and how good they were.
All right, and we didn't even mention Junior Adams, the wide receivers coach,
yes.
Who has a great reputation as a college receivers coach, and now making the step into the NFL. In fact, Cooper Kupp just swears by him. Said no coach in his career had more of an impact on him than Junior Adams when he was at Eastern Washington.
And there's nothing wrong with bringing some fresh ideas.
I love it. I love the energy, because there's a mix of experience
right.
and youth on this staff. And as it relates to the draft, where you've got guys who have, as recently as 2 months ago, coached in college, and they're very familiar with the players. Either they themselves coached, or they went up against,
or they tried to recruit these
exactly.
guys, and not only
right.
out of high school, but out of the portal.
And we know how much the coaches are involved in the draft process here, and so that can be big in just communicate. And plus, they, as you mentioned off the top, they all seem to be really good communicators.
Yeah.
And have a want to let the scouting staff know this is what I'm looking for in a player and so forth.
When I ask people their impression of the coaching staff, and you just mentioned the word, They said energy. It's like, hey, we're here to prove ourselves. And these guys are, not to say the other staff wasn't fired up, but a lot of energy and emotion on this staff. And one person told me when I asked about Schottenheimer and one of the other's assistants what they knew about him or what they felt that they did best, and the word was teacher. So,
and I think that's a big part of it is being able to connect with the players.
Right. Yeah. So, so having to put together almost an entirely new staff, it looks like at this point they've done a pretty good job.
All right, we're going to talk Zack Martin when we come back here on Mick Shots in just a moment.
Cowboys football and Miller Lite. What a pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going way past postgame. Sunday night overtimes followed by Monday morning swagger. Brisket in the smoker. Miller Lite in the cooler. America's team playing America's greatest sport. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
How do you tell the world about all the great gifts in the Yeti store? Let her rip, Troy.
All right, folks, let's get started with the Yeti French Press. Enjoy coffee that stays hot for hours in a French press. 34 ounce for you, 6'4" for the cruise. The Yeti French Press. Next, waterproof bags. Bags waterproof. Submersible waterproof doubles. Waterproof bags. World's mostly water, so get a waterproof Yeti bag. Do I smell something cooking? Oh, new cast iron skillets made to be passed down like Mama's recipes. Take a steak, cornbread, cobbler's pot pie, and potatoes and next level with 3 sizes of Yeti cast iron skillets.
Gear, gifts, and product experts. Visit the Yeti store on McKinney Street and at South Lake Town Square today.
Hey, Cowboy fans, I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But lately, I've been learning a new game, crypto. Sound confusing? Don't worry, even us pros were rookies in crypto once. That's why I trust blockchain.com. They make crypto easy. No confusing jargon, just the tools to help you win.
Prescott keeps it, slides with a first down.
Invest like your icons, where everyone is a rookie in crypto with blockchain.com.
Perfect throw, my goodness. Wow, did he ever thread the needle.
Visit blockchain.com/cowboys to get started.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
Back to Mick Shots.
The most action-packed motorsports experience in the world returns to Arlington. Head to AT&T Stadium on Saturday, March 8th for the Monster Jam. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks take over Arlington. Tickets are on sale now at SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing partner of AT&T Stadium.
My phone is about to blow up. My daughters are going to start saying, Dad, can you get us Monster Jam tickets for my grandsons?
How do they get involved in that?
Okay.
The noise, the size.
No, they've got monster trucks themselves they play with all the time. Oh, they love it.
Mickey, have you ever been?
No.
It's a blast.
Really?
Oh, it's great.
It sounds like Producer Supreme has not only been there, but planning to go again this weekend.
Probably not going to go this weekend. I do have plans.
It's can't miss theater.
Okay.
All right. Before we talk Zack Martin, a little item that's making news is the interview that I think David Moore did with Stephen Jones at the Combine. It was in the morning news this morning, and as now making the rounds on social media that it looks like Cowboys moving on from Trey Lance, but they are... Stephen Jones indicating that they have the thoughts of drafting a quarterback.
And obviously they were going to do that, I would imagine, even if they keep or try to re-sign Cooper Rush. you need another.
And I think the quote on Cooper Rush is, obviously, if you're paying the starter what the Cowboys are paying Dak Prescott, the money is tight as far as signing a veteran free agent. They love Cooper, and we're just going to have to see where the market goes on Cooper Rush.
Market value, and and I think when teams understand the importance of having a backup quarterback that can at least hold down the fort if you lose your starter. And who knows? Somebody may look at him and say, well, if we don't get somebody in the draft we like, maybe he's our starter until someone else is developed or comes along. So, yeah, market value is going to decide a lot of things for the Cowboys.
And when you look at this draft, and so what we're talking about here is a third-day quarterback,
right?
You would imagine, but when now it's not out of the question. You can make some moves, whatever, pick up an extra draft pick, and if there's somebody that you like in the third round, whatever. Because when you look at Dak's contract, you need someone. You would love to have a situation like what Detroit had this year, where they had Jared Goff, they had drafted Hendon Hooker, and Hendon Hooker never gets on the field, but he is a developmental quarterback that you have spent a second-day draft pick on. And then it got to the end of the season, and Detroit was like, you know what? If our quarterback goes down in the playoffs, I don't know that we want to throw this young guy in there. And so they signed Teddy Bridgewater late in the season. But you would love to have someone who you're grooming to be the eventual replacement once your starter gets up there in years and gets even retirement age. But
well, if you think that was the Cowboys' philosophy when they drafted Dak Prescott, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They had Kellen Moore as the veteran backup, and it's like, okay, maybe this guy can develop to be the backup to Tony Romo, and then lo and behold, everybody gets hurt, and Dak Prescott's starting quarterback.
And what was he? He was the number 135 pick in the draft in the fourth round. So I think
their second fourth round pick.
Behind Charles Tapper. And so that is the area you're probably looking at. And when you look at this quarterback draft, there could be someone like that in the fourth round. So we'll see.
And you've got basically two quarterback coaches with Ken Dorsey also to help out. So that certainly, but
I would think they're
developing somebody.
They are in the market, just like at running back. They are in the market for a veteran backup quarterback as well as
if it's not Cooper Rush,
right?
Yeah, and a draft.
A veteran. I'm talking about a guy that's not making much money,
right? So, yeah, or needs a job.
Yeah. All right. So Zack Martin. I don't think any of us were surprised with the announcement, and the Cowboys not caught off guard by it. You knew it was going to come eventually. Just the way things played out last season, it seemed obvious. And then after his Zack Martin's ankle surgery, he wanted to give it time just to make sure, but apparently he went into Jerry's office on Thursday and said it's time.
And the Cowboys had braced for this when they restructured his contract last year to save some cap money and push it down the road. And one of the things that I think got overlooked when they restructured his contract is they added a couple voided years, but the voidable year for this year, he had a $1.2 million base salary. So they did that because while he has basically told them he wants to retire, nothing's official, and what the Cowboys are going to do is release him once the league year starts and make him a June 1 cut. That gives them the opportunity to spread out the dead money that would take place in 1 year if he just retired and left. So his dead money is going to be significant. It's a total over 2 years of $26 million. So I think they take around a $9 million hit this year and the rest next year. So they were kind of preparing for this.
Now, according to Over the Cap, now you tell me whether I'm reading this correctly.
I know they've got it $9 million and $9 million.
Yeah, and then so what they have is $9.4 million in 2025.
Right.
This is with Zack Martin being a post June 1st cut. $9.4 million again in 2026. $4.4 million in 27 and $3.25 million in 28. So that all comes due next year.
Goes $17 million for next year.
Okay,
that's the way it was explained to me.
Okay,
so yeah, so when everybody says, well, the Cowboys don't know how to manage their cap, well, when you restructure bonuses to keep your guys, that money gets spread down the road, and when they leave or the contract's up, you still got to account for the proration. And the same thing's going to take place with DeMarcus Lawrence if he's not here or if he decides to also retire, although he kind of intimated to me that he wants to still play.
And let me correct myself on that. You're exactly right. And it says it on the Over the Cap website as well. The cap number is the cap number actually as a post June 1st cut is $10.65 million for this year, and then it's $17.06 million for next year.
Yeah. So it costs. So
now, if you don't designate him a June 1st cut, then it is $26.46 million.
Yeah, I rounded it off to 26. Yeah. So yeah, so I think good for him. A lot of guys, when their careers are done, they either are told they're done or you have an injury that ends it. He's been able to make his own decision. Like, this is what I want to do. He's played 11 years at an awfully high level, married, 3 kids. I think he's very satisfied for what he did. And I got an opportunity to talk to Jason Garrett. And if you guys remember, Jason, when he took over as head coach, realized that the one thing they needed to do, and this kind of corresponds with what's going on now, they needed to rebuild the offensive line. In 1 year, 2010, they got old and expensive, and they had to start moving on for guys. So if you remember, 2011, 9th pick in the draft, they take Tyron Smith.
Could be an announcement from him coming soon.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, because he's probably close to the end. In 2013, they traded down. They got Travis Frederick, your starting center, and also to go along with the trade down, you got a starting wide receiver, Terrence Williams, that same year. And then 2014, and this is the part that everybody doesn't. Everybody remembers that, Johnny Manziel was there. Well, Jason reminded me that they were looking for defense in that draft. The first guy they were looking at was, by the way, Anthony Barr, linebacker out of UCLA. He went number 11 to Minnesota. Their next guy they were looking at was Aaron Donald. He went number 13 to the Rams. And then they were all prepared at 16 to take Ryan Shazier out of Ohio State, the linebacker, and at 15, Pittsburgh took him. And so now they're at 16, and it was like, what to do. And Jason basically said there was a blinking light out there. Zack Martin was the kind of the quote he told me. And so after that brief conversation about Johnny Manziel, they decided that this guy, he said there was a consensus in the room that you couldn't pass up Zack Martin, and they rebuilt that offensive line. And I've got a soundbite here from Jason when I asked him, how do you describe the makeup of Zack Martin, who ended up playing 11 years for the Cowboys, 9 Pro Bowls, and here's what he had to say.
The lasting memory I will always have of Zack Martin is we've driven the ball down the field, a mix of run and pass. We get down in there close. We run it in with Zeke Elliott, right behind him. And just his look when he comes running off the field,
Mm-hmm.
and the smile he has on his face, and the love that he has for the game and playing and his teammates and all of that was just remarkable to me. And you know, I saw it so much, this look that he had, like, God, I absolutely love playing football. And so for me, that was such a distinguishing trait for him. And trust me, we tried to build our team with guys who are absolutely like that. Passionate about the game, work hard, all the stuff, you know, you used to hear me talk about the right kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. And he just embodied that.
Jason Garrett on Zack Martin, and I thought that pretty much summed it up because, you know, if you remember, even during the week or after games when you interviewed Zack Martin, he had this look in his eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like it very intentional. He just loved playing football.
You know, the lasting memory I will have of not only Zack Martin, but Tyron Smith, and for that matter, Travis Frederick, is Cowboys training camp, and they would all walk on the field together.
Yes.
And it was like, okay.
It was like the charge of the Light Brigade, right? All three together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It had to be intimidating for the opponent when you have those three walking in together.
And it was a pretty good offensive line that they added the next year, Lael Collins, who ended up being, because of circumstances, a free agent signing. And they rebuilt that offensive line, and what happened? They were able to run the football, right? And was it important? And Jason said, did you watch the Super Bowl?
Right. It's still important.
It's still important.
Uh-huh.
Old school football, right?
And then he had Ron Leary also on that offensive
Yes.
line in 2016. And Doug Free was the right tackle going back to the early time when they first came in.
And ended up being a holdover from that line.
Right.
Ended up getting pretty, Flozell Adams got a little bit in age. Kozier was there.
Kyle Kozar.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. But, yeah, what a career.
Colombo.
What a career.
This puts it in perspective. There are 3 Cowboys in the history of the organization who were named first-team All-Pro 7 times in their career. And those 3, 2 of them are first-ballot Hall of Famers,
right?
Bob Lilly and Randy White, and Zack Martin is the 3rd one.
And the only offensive lineman they had with more than 9 Pro Bowls was Larry Allen with 10. He had more than Rayfield Wright. And then I think the next guys were like Nate Newton, John Nyland, that had 6 Pro Bowls.
And I asked an 11-time Pro Bowler, Jason Witten, about Zack Martin, and the first words out of his mouth, may be the best teammate I ever had, which tells you a lot about Zack Martin, too.
And the other thing is, and I don't know if the thought was in the Cowboys' mind, he was their nominee for the NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year award, and he made it to the Super Bowl.
Yep. I don't know that making it to the
Not
Super
the
Bowl
Super Bowl
wasn't, but I
part,
guarantee you that
the
they,
Man of the Year deal.
they knew that this was likely the end.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got much more Mick shots coming at you in just a moment.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Hey, Cowboy fans, I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But lately, I've been learning a new game, crypto. Sound confusing? Don't worry, even us pros were rookies in crypto once. That's why I trust blockchain.com. They make crypto easy. No confusing jargon, just the tools to help you win.
Prescott keeps it, slides with a first down.
Invest like your icons, where everyone is a rookie in crypto with blockchain.com.
Perfect throw, my goodness. Wow, did he ever thread the needle.
Visit blockchain.com/Cowboys to get started.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Cowboys football and Miller Lite. What a pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going way past postgame. Sunday night overtimes followed by Monday morning swagger. Brisket in the smoker. Miller Lite in the cooler. America's team playing America's greatest sport. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Back to Mick Shots.
Cowboys Nation, Cowboys United, presented by Globe Life, is now exclusively in the Dallas Cowboys app. Join the official fan club today to receive access to all new Cowboys drop features, team news, and pre-sale access, and fan and kid of the game. Download the apps now to join. Need to start putting commas and periods.
Okay, 2014 draft. Zack Martin, first round, and then what did the Cowboys do in the second round?
They traded
up
for
DeMarcus Lawrence. That's pretty good. And that who's
used a third round.
By the way, who was running that draft for the first time in his career? Will McClay. That was his first draft.
Oh, that's right.
First draft with him in control of it, 2014.
Did we ever point out in one of the shows that they re-signed Will for another 5 years? It was a big signing, right?
That was the first big free agent signing
right.
of the offseason.
Absolutely.
All right, so now, Will, go. What are we doing at guard?
Well, if we look at what's there now.
And let me start with this.
Yeah.
Connor Riley, new offensive line coach.
Right.
Coach Cooper Beebe at Kansas State.
Where he was
and
a
Cooper
guard
Beebe,
and tackle.
That's right. And as we all know, because he practiced shotgun snaps to his mom in his backyard in Kansas City this summer, this was his first time playing center. When you hear Connor Riley talking about Cooper Beebe, did you get any inkling about where he thinks Cooper Beebe might best fit long term in the NFL?
He mentioned it's always good to have flexibility, but then that comes down to if you move him to guard, then who's your center?
Because I think actually when they drafted Cooper Beebe in the third round last April, it was with the idea that eventually, whether depending on when Zack Martin retires, he would be plugged in at right guard for Zack Martin. But in the meantime, he's now played center, and now he's
played awfully well,
and got that position versatility, which puts him in a good spot.
And I think when the Cowboys look at it, their other swing backup offensive lineman was Brock Hoffman, who had played center but could play guard. And
then you also have T.J. Bass, who is a guard.
And I think they liked Hoffman better at guard than they did at center. And then
is that based on the fact that he was then filling in at the end of the year at guard
and played well?
Or were they just did that? Of course, there was a different offensive line coach,
right?
Or did they do that because they're just not changing up two positions,
right?
You know?
Exactly.
And Beebe hadn't played guard.
And you got T.J. Bass at got some work at guard, and then Awesome Richards, who had done both as a backup, guard and tackle, and I'm just wondering if they turn that left tackle job up for competition between Guyton and Awesome Richards.
Okay.
I'm just wondering. I don't know if it'll take place, but it's a new staff, right?
Okay, you alluded to this in the last segment, that the Cowboys are kind of in the same boat, or have been for the last couple of years, really, in the same boat that they were a little over a decade ago when they drafted a future Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, then they drafted Travis Frederick and a future Hall of Famer in Zack Martin. How does this rebuild? It doesn't compare with that, because you can't compare it with that. That was an all-timer. But where are they now in rebuilding this offensive line? How far along are they? And I would throw this out. The key on that is what happens with Tyler Guyton.
Right.
They started this rebuild actually in 2022 when they drafted Tyler Smith, who is now, after starting at left tackle by necessity his rookie year, has established himself as perhaps a perennial Pro Bowl player at left guard.
And I think that as good as he is, you had to be happy what BB did at center. I know Terrence Steele, he's not probably a Pro Bowler at right tackle, but he's kind of entrenched there with a contract that he has. So you got to decide what's going on at right guard and left tackle. And I think those are two things that they have to look at this year. And, in the draft, and I'm going to beat Nate Newton to say this, but he will be a proponent of taking an offensive lineman in the first 2 days, and preferably the second day, or at least the first 3 rounds, to help out and to create some depth, if nothing else, and a guy for the future. And again, I'll say it like I said when they drafted Tyler Smith, is that I want a tackle that can play guard and then eventually end up as a tackle. I think that's the best way to go, and I think they'll need one of those among all the other things, and we can do that next week on all the decisions they have to make that'll impact what they do those first 2 days of the draft.
But they really need Guyton to be what he was drafted to be.
And the coaches talked highly of him. And I want to mad. I think it was Connor Riley pointing out that, and he knew Guyton's background, and pointed out that he just hasn't played that much tackle. 14 games at Oklahoma, I think it was. And then on and off here, trying to start as a rookie, got hurt a couple times, missed games.
You just hope you're just not in the same position that Kansas City obviously is in.
Right.
And they drafted the guy, Wanye Morris, who started ahead of Tyler Guyton at Oklahoma. And then they also spent a second-round draft pick this past year in 2024 on a left tackle from BYU who wasn't able to get on the field, and they wound up having to play their Zack Martin in Joe Tooney out at left tackle in the Super Bowl, and you saw how that happened there.
Paid the price for not hitting on those draft choices.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we got to point out, and I think this is another discussion for another day to get into it, but when they were at 26 and they traded down to 29. That's a second-round grade, right? Everybody looks at, well, that's a first-round grade. Did you bust on a first-round pick? Well,
and he was like the 8th offensive tackle taken.
Right, yeah. They were all taken by then, right? So
now,
that's why
they were kind of in
down.
the same boat when they drafted Tyler Smith, where it was the last tier, the last of that tier.
Right.
And they hit on that, okay?
But the percentages of hitting after probably 20, it goes down.
But the key on Guyton is that potential.
Yeah.
And tapping that potential.
And that's what
that's
Connor
why
Riley
this is such a big
about.
off season. But it's in the weight room as well. It's getting his body to where he can play a full 17-game season plus, because that's the other concern that I had on him coming out is that, as you pointed out, in his 2 years at Oklahoma, he'd only played in 14 games and had a problem staying on the field, and that surfaced again this year. Competition committee met in Indianapolis. Stephen Jones, a part of that. You got a couple of notes from that?
Yeah. Rich McKay, who's the chairman of the competition committee, said that they did discuss moving the touchback on the kickoffs up to the 35-yard line because there had been so many touchbacks kicking the ball into the end zone, although the kickoff returns, there were 332, he pointed out, and it was a 32.8% returns, and it was like almost 10% more than the year before. So that part of it helped with more returns. And I thought the other thing pointed out was that they used the replay assist this year to help immediately for calls on the field. Well, they're thinking of expanding it to potentially penalties too. So that would be interesting. The other thing is that there probably going to be some sort of discussion on onside kicks, on what to do there to kind of put that back into the game somehow, some way.
You know, it seems like it should be something where teams have the option of doing it whenever they want to do it.
I know, but
it's kind of like the 2-point conversion.
But how do you change where you're at?
Well, you just have to. It takes out the element of surprise.
Right, right.
And so.
Oh, and by the way, also moving the kickoffs back to the 30-yard line to try to make it a little bit more difficult to get touchbacks.
To move it back to the 30, and in addition, the touchback rule would be out to the 35.
Yeah. Yeah.
By golly, we're going to, one way or the other, we're going
to get kickoff returns. The other thing that I think brought up when I talked about the onside thing, there was a discussion of adjusting the onside kick to the 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 conversion. So I don't think the owners. I think the owners. Think that's a little too gunked up. That's my word, gunked.
And you could just do that in the fourth quarter?
It didn't go that far. It just said that
let the UFL experiment with that first.
See how that works. sort of like the automated ball and strike thing in the Major League Baseball.
There you go. Yeah,
experiment
let the minor leagues
with it
do it
in
first.
The minor leagues.
All right, got anything else?
No, I think we
next
got
week, man, can you imagine how full this green notebook's going to be
after the combine, and you get all the numbers, the real height and weight.
You can start watching workouts on Thursday now that it's a prime time event now.
Oh, really?
So, yep. So,
but better not get in the way of any of our basketball or hockey games.
Well, you can record it.
Or college basketball, by the way.
All right, so that does it. Everson says he'll be back next week.
Yes.
And we appreciate you joining us here for Mick Shots, brought to you by Miller Lite. And at the end of the when I quit talking, Mickey's going to say, "Go Cowboys." Right?
We're going to leave that to Chris, right?
See you next Monday at 11.
Go Cowboys!
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!